Hello, I am Dr. Giovanni Vinti, and in this module of the cleanup campaign, I will provide you details for illegal dump sites removal. In particular, I will discuss basic estimates on resources required in terms of time, necessary equipment, and cost estimations. Finally, in this module, I will present you an example of estimations. First of all, you have to consider that depending on local conditions, you should prefer manual or mechanical waste removal. Indeed, for small dump sites, it is suggested to conceive manual waste removal. In this case, for male workers, our waste removal rate of 1 cubic meter per hour can be assumed, while for female workers, waste removal rate of 0.6 cubic meter per hour can be assumed. At the same time, if there is waste that requires particular attention, for example, in the case of the presence of medical waste or liquid waste in the dump site, the productivity is reduced to 0.8 cubic meter per hour per male workers and 0.5 cubic meter per hour per female workers. The waste removal must take place by dividing at this point the workers into teams of 2 or 3 people to facilitate the waste bagging. In the case of a medium dump site, it is suggested to conceive mechanical waste removal by means of a small skid steel loader with a removal rate of 7 cubic meter per hour. But also a small excavator can be conceived having a removal rate of 7 cubic meter per hour. If a higher waste removal rate can be needed, for example, because the dump site is very big, the joint use of a small skid steer loader and a small excavator can be conceived. In this case, a removal rate of 20 cubic meter per hour can be assumed. Then, to transport waste to disposal sites, the use of a 10 cubic meter tipper truck is required. However, if, for example, large trucks cannot access some areas because there are narrow roads, for example, or for other reasons, smaller tipper trucks can be needed, for example, with a volume of 5 cubic meter. The number of trucks needed must be estimated according to the time required to reach the disposal sites, but also to unload the waste and return to the dump site. These are the following values are suggested: an average speed of the truck of 25 kilometers per hour, time to enter the disposal site and discharge waste as equal to 15 minutes. To estimate the total intervention time in each dump site, the following activities need to be considered: the working hours for waste removal, as previously discussed, then also the time required for preparation and also dismantling the site need to be considered, and it is suggested to conceive 30 minutes for small dump sites and 60 minutes for medium dump sites. Then 30 minutes for moving of crew and equipment from a site to another need to be considered. Finally, an additional 10% increase need to be conceived for any unexpected event. Furthermore, the operational cost of the intervention can be estimated by assuming the following unit costs. For simple worker, $1 US per hour. For supervisors, $4 US per hour. For small excavator, $90 US per hour. For small skid steer loader, $90 US per hour. For tipper truck of 10 cubic meter volume, $110 US per hour. For smaller tipper trucks with 5 cubic meter of volume, $70 US per hour. Finally, a land filling fee of $1 US per cubic meter of waste was assumed. The total cost of the intervention can be finally obtained by adding the following additional expenses to the operational costs. Unexpected events, 10% of the operational costs. Consumable personal protective equipment and administrative expenses, 15% of operational costs. Then, if a private company is engaged, an additional 10% can be conceived. At the same time, according to the budget set by BRA for the pilot project, the cost for public awareness raising campaign should be added to. Now, as anticipated, I'm going to discuss an example, a practical example, in which it was imagined that 5 small dump sites and 3 medium dump sites were identified in a district of Mogadishu. This is just an example, but this figure was taken from Google Earth. So this is a real area of Mogadishu. Here you can see a summary of the information that we imagined to have. And in particular, these are the coordinates, the type of dump site. As I said, we assumed the 5 small dump sites and 3 medium dump sites. The area of each dump site at the soil level, the maximum height of each dump site, the total volume, then the waste, the kind of waste. You can see that in the case of the first 2 dump sites, we assumed both municipal solid waste and other particular kind of waste, while in the other dump site, we only conceived the municipal solid waste. Then in all dump sites except dump site 4 and 5, large trucks can reach the sites. Then we consider also road occupation or work site. In some cases, yes, and other no. Considering the small dump sites, as anticipated, manual operations are suggested. In this case, we consider 2 teams of 3 workers each. The staff of cleanup workers will be made up of women, and each female worker could move, as anticipated, 0.6 cubic meter of waste per hour, except for dump sites 1 and 2, in which, due to the presence of particular waste, the removal rate is reduced to 0.5 cubic meter per hour. Considering dump sites 6, 7, and 8, these are medium dump sites, then mechanical means were conceived for waste removal. In particular, the joint use of a small loader and a small excavator was assumed in dump sites for dump sites 7 and 8. Given the small volume of dump site 6, only a small excavator was considered. It is important to note that in the case of dump site 6, although its volume is lower than 30 cubic meter, it is considered a medium dump site because it is in a depressed area and mechanical means are required. The working hours required for each dump site are shown in this table. In particular, in the second column, you can see the volume of waste in each dump site. In the third, the waste removal rate previously discussed, while the working hours for waste removal can be obtained considering the volume and dividing it for the waste removal rate. Here in this last column, you can see the value calculated in each dump site. To estimate the total intervention time, also the preparation, as anticipated, also the preparation of the work site at the beginning of the activity in each dump site and its final dismantling were considered, 30 and 60 minutes for small and medium dump site respectively. In addition, moving from a site to another will require 30 further minutes. As a consequence, the total working hours in each dump site is shown in this table. In particular, the total time is shown in the fourth column. However, you have also add an additional 10%. As a consequence, total time with this additional 10% is represented in the last column. Furthermore, the linear distance of each dump site to the current municipal dump site was calculated by using Google Earth and calculating the distance, this distance. It resulted in an average value of 10 kilometers, and however, the dump sites are then the 8 dump sites are very close to each other. As a consequence, it is a value that can be assumed as a mean value. The average speed was 25 kilometers per hour, and each round trip lasted at least 48 minutes. Considering that, however, the pathway is not linear, the value was conservatively rounded up to 1 hour. Besides, 15 minutes were assumed to enter the disposal sites and discharge the waste. As a consequence, the trip of each waste truck will last about 1 hour and 15 minutes. We assumed to start with dump sites 1 and 2 because they are the only two with waste that are difficult to manage. Indeed, as previously shown, in dump site 1, we had both municipal waste and stinging waste, and in dump site 2, we had both municipal waste and liquid waste. Furthermore, dump sites 4 and 5 were not accessible with the large waste truck, and small waste trucks were considered. The number and types of truck required for each dump site is shown in this table. Indeed, you can see the capacity of each waste truck and waste trucks required. Dump site 8, that is the biggest one, we require a higher number of waste trucks. Here you can see summarized a series of information in terms of the time required to fill in the large waste truck in dump site 1. Indeed, in this case, it will you will need 3 hours. This is because, as shown before, you have a volume of 9 cubic meter, working hours for waste removal, and a waste removal rate of 3 cubic meter per hour. This means that you will need 3 hours. In dump site 2, to fill in a single large truck, you will need about 3.3 hours because you consider 10 cubic meters, that is the value of a waste truck, and a waste removal rate of 3 cubic meter per hour. But at the same time, to avoid excessive dead time for each round trip from dump site 2 to the municipal dump site, 2 trucks were considered. In dump site 3, that has a volume of waste of 20 cubic meter, 5.6 hours will be required in total, but about 2.8 hours will be necessary to fill in each waste truck. Thus, the use of 2 large waste trucks was conceived. In dump sites 4 and 5, a total of 5 and 7.5 hours respectively will be necessary. But these dump sites were not accessible by large waste trucks. As a consequence, for each dump site, 2 small trucks were conceived. And indeed, each truck needs about 1 hour and 25 minutes to be filled, while the municipal dump site round trip lasts 1 hour and 15 minutes. In the case of dump site 6, the use of 2 large waste trucks will be needed. Each truck will be filled with waste in about 1 hour and 25 minutes. In the case of dump sites 7 and 8, as anticipated, mechanical means will be required for waste removal. And in addition, the use of 3 large waste trucks was conceived for dump site 7. Each truck will be filled in 30 minutes. Still, 15 more minutes need to be considered in addition to the 3 hours already estimated, due to the dead time between the third and the fourth trip. However, it appears more affordable to accept these 5 additional minutes in total, instead of renting another truck. The situation is different in dump site 8 because in this case the volume is higher. 3 large waste trucks and 1 small truck were conceived. Indeed, to fill in each large truck, also in this case, 30 minutes will be necessary, while for the small truck only 15 minutes will be needed. In this case, 15 additional minutes should be considered using 3 trucks. But removing the total waste volume will lead to 14 additional times, considering the dead time in this case. As a consequence, to a small truck, the additional small truck will allow overcoming such an issue. And all the trucks will have to make 3 trips. The table below shows the number of workers and mechanical means required in each dump site. It has to be considered that the total time the workers and mechanical means required was put together to estimate the total cost of the intervention. But although in dump sites 6, 7, and 8 mechanical means were conceived, to facilitate the operations, at least 2 manual waste workers was also conceived as additional workers. As a consequence, in dump site 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can see that you will need 6 waste workers in each dump site and supervisors. So a supervisor, but no mechanical means, no small excavator, no small skid steer loader. In dump sites 6, 7, and 8, you will need mechanical means, but also 2 waste workers per dump site and a supervisor. In the table below, you can see the total working hours required for all the workers and mechanical means. These results were obtained by multiplying the values of the previous table, I mean this table, for the hours required per each category. Then this value was, each value was rounded up. This means that, for example, in dump site 1, you will need 6 waste workers, as shown below, but at the same time, the working hours are those obtained before in this table. So here you can see the total time in terms of working hour, 4.4 and 11, for example, for the first 2 sites. Here you can see 4.4 and multiplied by 6, or 11 multiplied, that are the hours, multiplied by 6. The same is for supervisors. Indeed, you will need the same working hours, but you have only one supervisor, for example, in dump site 1. This value is then rounded up and resulted in 5. In the case of a tipper truck, you can see more details here, but the concept is just the same. Indeed, for example, as we already calculated before, for each in dump site 1, you will need just one tipper truck, and as you can see here. And in addition, you can obtain this value considering 3 hours for the hours required to fill in the tipper truck. Then 1.25, that are the hours required to discharge waste in the municipal dump site or in the municipal landfill. Then this value was rounded up. Here you can find more details for each tipper truck related to each dump site, just looking, for example, at letter A, B, C, and so on. In the case of a small excavator and small skid steer loader, their hours are the same of the total working hours previously calculated, but rounded up. Indeed, you can see that the original values were 4.5, 4.9, and 7.1 hours. That are the working hours calculated just before, I mean, here. The working hours required for dump site 6, 7, and 8. Finally, the total cost was estimated. In particular, for example, if you look at the first column, you can see 27, this value are in US dollars. And this 27 is related to the fact that 27 are the hours that will be needed for waste workers in the first dump site. You have to multiply this the total working hours for the cost. For example, as discussed before, the operational cost for a simple worker, I mean a waste worker, is $1 US per hour. In the case of a supervisor, it will be $4 US per hour, and so on. As a consequence, you can obtain this value by multiplying the total working hours for the cost of each worker or means or mechanical means. In this way, you can find in the last column the required costs for the waste removal in each dump site. The cost of cleaning up all the dump site resulted in $11,792 and it is given as the sum of all these values in the last column. However, the value needs to be increased by 35%. As we discussed before, 10% are related for unexpected events, 15% for consumable personal protective equipment and administrative expenses, then an additional 10% because in this example, we assume a private company is engaged for the dump site removal. As a consequence, the total cost results in $15,920. Thanks for the attention.